Okay, so it being on or about 6:30, I want to bring this meeting of the Easton Conservation Commission to order. And let me just read off some notices here. In accordance with the ongoing emergency order from Governor Baker to limit gatherings and maximize social distancing, this meeting is being conducted over Zoom. Attendance by board commission members will be remote, and remote attendance shall count towards quorum. This meeting is being recorded, both audio and video for replay later on Easton Cable Access Television. If you want to join the meeting, the instructions are in the agenda, and the meeting ID is in the upper left-hand corner. If during the meeting you want to be heard, you can raise your hand and we'll recognize you at the appropriate time, or you can submit a question in the Q&A box. Please identify yourself with your name and address for the record. Other than that, I think pretty much everything else is standard here. We just, for the purposes of quorum, have all the commission members identify themselves through taking attendance. So Rory Caulfield is present.
And Carol, present.
Mike Spady, present.
Okay, so that being completed, first up is 85 Union Street. This is a notice of intent for a upgrade a single-family residential septic system. Collins Engineering is the. Give me 1 second. I'm one screen down today, so I've only got 2 screens. Usually I have 3. See if I can handle it. Promoting Peter Lyons right now.
Good evening, everybody. Hear me and see me all right?
Yeah, very well.
Okay.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about the project, introduce yourself for the record.
Yep. Did my screen come up for display?
It did.
Okay. For the record, Peter Lyons with Collins Civil Engineering Group, representing the homeowner tonight. We're here for a notice of intent for the repair of a residential septic system. A quick overview of the property. This is on Union Street, just before the Brockton line. To the north, we have French Pond, which drains to the south. Running by our site, we have a mean high resource line and then a BVW line that creeps up closer to our proposed work. The general scope of this is replacing the existing leaching pit. Excuse me. There's a series of existing pits that we're going to pump and fill and abandon in place, and we're going to be providing a new 1,500-gallon septic tank to a slightly elevated pipe and stone leaching system in the back of the property. Anyone who's familiar with Union Street knows it's typically a pretty tough area as far as soils go. So we started up in the front yard and we did, I don't know, 7 or 8 anyways, test holes, and we encountered ledge between 3 and 6 feet. Sorry. The only place we found favorable natural materials was down the hill in the backyard where the proposed system is going. So that is the reason we are, within the 50 to the resource areas. To the east, we are outside of jurisdiction to the BVW, but we're dealing with significant topography and a lot of ledge up here as well. We didn't even bother digging up here because you could see the ledge sticking right out of the hillside. We did some test pits up in the flat area, and we encountered nothing but fill right down to the natural ledge. So really no options on this one. We were able to find a hole to put the septic tank, but overall it's a tough site with what's really going on underground in this case. So this is what we've come up with. The tank is as close as 43 feet to the resource line, and the leaching field itself is as close as 28 feet. This is kind of our close corner in the bottom. The erosion control line will be set at 13 feet from the resource area just to accommodate the grading. There will be a small retaining wall to help us tighten up the grading a little bit around the system. Limit of work, erosion control is our dashed line, which starts at a probably 5-foot retaining wall and then wraps around all of the proposed work and encompassing the site access up to Union Street. The darker circles you see are the conservation post locations shown pretty much around the proposed work limit. We have our post detail on the plan as well as all of our standard wetland sedimentation control notes and instructions listed right here. All of our wall details, dewatering pit detail. That's about it. Any questions from the commission on this one?
Jennifer?
I didn't have any questions on this one. There was just one item that needed to be fixed in their application, and that was already taken care of. The permit is under the state law and the local bylaw, but it's exempt under the Rivers Act for the state law. And so you have all the documentation you need to close the hearing.
Okay. Peter, can you the retaining wall's around 4 or 5 feet, is that correct?
There's an existing retaining structure. It's kind of the squiggly line right here. So the top is elevation 178 and the base is down at about 173. So that is existing, and we're going to be kind of tying off our proposed septic system. So let's see, at the upper end of the field, we're at 175, it looks like. And then, yeah, it'll be about a 5-foot drop again, down to the new corner in the south. So there'll be a little bit of a step down, say 3 feet from the existing wall onto a secondary platform with the leaching bed. And then you'll drop down a few more feet. And the basis of the wall is kind of shown in this detail. We're using the, looks like 2-foot, 2x2 concrete blocks probably. I can't see where it says it, but yeah, concrete blocks for the wall.
Okay. The only other question I have is if there's a, believe it or not, a seesaw in Dorchester Brook. Right about the area where the septic tank is being proposed, there's actually a seesaw in the brook that's actually causing some hang up of large limbs and whatnot on the thing, and I'd like that taken care of before we actually start the project. I can provide a picture if you need. This is not just a tiny little seesaw.
Yeah, I haven't personally seen it, but if it's obvious, I don't know if we need pictures. Yeah. So get that taken out. Is it something removable by hand?
Yeah, it looks removable by.
Yeah, obviously the frost is a little bit tough right now, but we'll see what we can do.
Any questions from the commission, Michael or Ben?
And for me.
Yeah, none for me, all set.
Okay, so any public comment, 85 Union Street? Raise your hand or give me some indication. So seeing none, I assume you want to close, Peter?
Yes, please, we would.
Okay, so motion to close 85 Union Street.
Carol, second.
Roll call vote, Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Spady, aye.
Caulfield's Carol with the second, 3-0 for to close. Any other deliberation on the, I think we'll just condition them removing the seesaw out of the stream. Make a motion to issue a permit for work and order of conditions for 85 Union Street, noting that pre-construction, the seesaw should be removed from the stream.
Spady, second.
Roll call vote, Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Spady, aye.
Caulfield, Spady, a second, 3-0. Okay, Peter.
Awesome, and quick question, can that removal be done anytime after tonight, or do we have to wait for anything? For the, in the river?
Jennifer, you have any feedback on that?
I don't have an issue with it being taken out before that.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, the stream's running now, so if you can get out there.
Yep. Okay, all right, thank you very much, I think that's all I have for you tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Next up is 5 Cooper Lane. This is a notice of intent for, request for termination of applicability for a single-family home. And who is this? Mike O'Shaughnessy? What'd you say?
Should be Mike.
Okay, thank you. I'm literally really put off by only having 2 screens. I think next time I'll have to go borrow another one because this is really, I got so used to it. Mike, you are up. You can turn on your video and audio. And
hello, everyone. I'm trying to get the video going here. There we go. Nothing you want to see me. Mike O'Shaughnessy, I'm here tonight on behalf of Jay Zola, trustee of the Nye Realty Trust. We're asking for a negative request for determination of applicability for 5 Cooper Lane. 5 Cooper Lane was part of the Barron Estates subdivision. Jen, I don't know if you can pull up the plan or not. I have no idea how it's done. Or Rory or whoever can do it.
I'll bring it
Or
up.
I could just go through it. It's pretty straightforward. If you recall, it was part of the Barron Estates subdivision. This particular lot was cleared and a permanent turtle protection barrier was installed. North of the turtle protection barrier, there was a small little area. There you go. Right. If you look at the plan, it's called in this plan conservation restriction, existing sediment control. That's actually permanently installed. It sticks out of the ground about 2 feet. So just in front of that wall, the applicant, the property owner is seeking to complete the grading and to be able to install a small portion of the house in the buffer zone. It's effectively permanent sedimentation and erosion control. All the clearing of the lot has already been done. This RDA is basically to finish the grading and to authorize to allow a portion of the house, about 400 square feet, to be installed in the outer 75 to 100 foot buffer to the BVW that is to the south of the proposed house. I think what happened along the way is once the septic system got designed, it pushed the house further towards the conservation, the turtle protection barrier. So given all the work that's been done, and given the small amount of work to be in the buffer zone that's already disturbed, we're doing this as an RDA.
So so anything else, Mike?
No, that's it. That's it in a nutshell. It's pretty straightforward.
Jennifer?
And that's correct. It's a minor project for the amount of actual work that's in the buffer zone. So an RDA is appropriate. You may consider adding another conservation sign at the edge of the property line. Other than that, I don't have any other comments. It would be a negative determination.
So a different type of conservation sign? They have those.
No, just, well, yeah. I think when they come in to redo the wetland permit that's expired, we're talking about revising those signs so that they're a little more aesthetically pleasing and appropriate. Yeah, but I would just add one more at the left property line.
Over here somewhere?
That's fine.
So maybe right where the 100 meets the road, the turtle control?
More at the lot corner in the back.
Okay, good enough.
Yeah. That's probably more appropriate for the homeowner.
Good enough, true enough. So just I think I have no issues with this. It's well controlled. I don't think you're gonna have any issues here, especially with that turtle barrier, as you said, raising 2 feet out of the ground. The one comment that I have, and maybe it's a little bit of a discussion for us, is that someone either in the neighborhood or in a budding neighborhood has, Mike, this isn't your issue. I'm not asking you to address this issue, but I do want to have this conversation about this. Is that the turtle barrier, someone has sort of built up dirt over both sides of it at the end of the cul-de-sac. And it's for, I believe it would be for bikes. That they're using it to sort of as a ramp to be able to jump over the barrier rather than have to stop at the barrier, put the bike over the barrier. Because if you go out in the woods, there's all sorts of stuff out in the woods for bikes. There's ramps and stuff like this.
Is it the end of this cul-de-sac, Rory?
It is, yeah, right at
I think I know what you're talking about. I'll talk to the property owner, assuming it is who I think it is, and I'll ask him to take care of that. I'll ask him to remove the dirt and get rid of the ramp.
I don't want to, we put this turtle protection all over the place. We just don't want to create a way for the turtles to come over the protection.
Right.
So that's my concern. I want people to use the conservation land in a passive way, which is fine. I just don't want turtles to come into this property. That's the whole purpose. They have the turtle tunnels they can use over down the street. So, any other comments? Okay. So seeing none, I'm ready to close. Mike, I assume you want us to close?
Please.
Motion to close 5 Cooper Lane.
Carol, second.
Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Speedy, aye.
Caulfield's Carol with the second. 3-0 closed. Any other deliberation? So we'll just add the condition about adding a sign in the corner of the lot. So make a motion to issue a negative termination of applicability 3, a -3 on this under the local, right?
Yes.
And with the condition that a sign get added at the corner of the property, a rear corner of the property.
Speedy, second.
Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Speedy, aye.
Caulfield, Speedy with the second. 3-0. Okay.
Thank you, guys.
You're up next, aren't you?
No, I'm
Not really.
up for 58 Mill Street.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Good. See ya. Okay, so next up is 12 Goodspeed Estates, Lot 5. Lot 3. We had Lot 5 last time. 12 Goodspeed Lane, Lot 3. This is Goodspeed Estates over 345. This is a notice of intent to construct a single-family residence. And so someone has promoted Kevin up.
Yep, that's me. And we sent the form with the correct owner info, or Mike O'Shaughnessy was incorrectly on there, but that's been fixed. So I'll share my screen.
Can you just introduce yourself for the record?
Yeah, so my name's Kevin Quiddy. I'm the principal engineer at Quiddy Design LLC. So this project's a proposed single-family home. It was approved under the, part of the Goodspeed subdivision, and was originally had a impervious area coverage of about 2,485 square feet, and we're now proposing about an extra 900 square feet. And we originally had not met the setback requirements, so I was brought on board to help do that and to provide the stormwater management design. We do have some buffers that go through the site, as well as a septic system easement on the western part of the lot, which takes the nearby parcels as well. So we have, that crosses through the site, the 100-foot wetland buffer, as well as the 50-foot local wetland buffer. We also are part within the 200-foot riverfront buffer, that's bylaw only, and there's an isolated land subject to flooding. That was previously under the Goodspeed Lanes subdivision, was deemed that we could fill over that area. So going to the house, as I said, we pushed it back off of the road to meet the subdivision regulations. For the setbacks, our foundation is outside of the 50-foot buffer, and we are proposing a retaining wall within the 50-foot buffer, which was partially to provide enough area for the back stormwater management system. So we are sending the entire roof area to the two systems, which is StormTech SC 310 chambers. We have 3 at the front and 6 at the back, and that's surrounded in crushed stone. We're about 6 feet off of the edge of the wall, which would be designed with high hydrostatic pressure, and they are designed to capture the entire 100-year storm. And we do have test pit data from the septic design, so I use that for my calculations, and yeah, putting the soil stockpile at the back or at the front of the lot, as far as we can from the wetland. The wall itself, as I said, is within the 50-foot buffer, but we're about 34 feet from the wetland flag. Do you guys have any questions? Or?
So at the end of your presentation, we'll move to the next phase here. So,
let me see. I think that pretty much covers it. We have not gotten our DEP number, but I believe, Jen, we tried to connect today, but you said we might not need that to be able to vote on this.
You're only filing under the bylaw.
Okay, so even though we have the 100-foot buffer, so that does cross right here.
The 100-foot buffer to what though? Because you're not showing it on the plan, so.
Yeah, it's farther south. It's not on the plan.
Okay. So there's state wetland that's further south that you're
that's
not.
Further south, yeah, and you can see here. This is
okay.
This is the 50-foot wetland buffer, and then we obviously have the bylaw wetland here, which
okay.
does have that 50-foot line that crosses approximately here.
Okay, so yes, you do need a wetland file number, a DEP
okay.
file number.
So we would be requesting a continuance for the 7th of February.
okay, well let's do all our deliberations and everything, and then we can maybe just vote on the 7th and be done with it. So once we get the number. So Jennifer, you want to give us a little bit of a?
Yeah, we've gone back and forth a few times with plan revisions and other project modifications, like the operation and maintenance plan for the homeowner to be able to manage the new stormwater system that's being installed. I did double check the wetland permit for the road and the drainage work. It did include the isolated wetland being filled and replicated. And so that was done with the previous permit. And I'm just going to point out some of the grading, right? So in the left corner of the house, is that 127?
Yeah, correct. So there is a fair amount of fill on the lot, which is part of, you'll see here, was obviously for the septic leach field design. And I'm not showing the grading to the east because I did match the plan of what I was received. But just because that might change and that's off our lot, I didn't want to provide a firm direction on that.
Okay, but that 127, it's 20, so there's 7 feet of fill there. Do you think you need any other grading or a retaining wall
So
in
we
that
have the
one spot?
126. That's something I thought I definitely cleared up, but I can look into that if that is a comment we have. But I do think it would be 2% to down the hill to the nearest contour from the wall.
Isn't that existing line a 120 though? If I follow it, it says 120.
So it's a bit, so if you go to this plan, you'll see there's the 126 contour. And then there's the other 126 contour that we tie into from the road.
So what's the 120 underneath it?
So that's the original survey. So for the road, we never got an updated survey or like an as-built survey of the road. So it's basically just, I compiled the two surveys. You can tell with the line types, the dashed ones are from the original survey, and then the straight contours are the like current existing condition.
So we don't have existing conditions on the plan?
Well, it has the layout of the road that shows the current existing conditions. But yeah, so I have a note in there. So when I do the test pits for the proposed drainage system, just to confirm, to be within the 25 feet, just to possibly confirm some of that grading, just to make sure that when we do take the test pit, that we're taking it at the correct elevation.
The grades on the plan right now are not accurate for existing conditions.
No, the roadway grades are accurate, but yeah, there are some contours that were from the previous condition.
Right, but we're not talking about the road. We're talking about the lot itself. So the contours on the lot are not accurate?
I haven't been on site, so I don't know how it currently is graded. But if Ethan's on, he might have a better sense of that.
Did see him there. Do you want me to do that, Rory, or are you already on it?
I'm on it. Hey, Ethan.
Hi, guys.
Can you just identify yourself for the record?
Sure. Ethan Ekstrom, and I'm part of the development team on behalf of the owner, Backcut, for the subdivision.
So can you give us some insight into what the current conditions on the lot might be?
Sure. So existing conditions are as shown in those dashed lines that Kevin had pointed out. The septic system is raised as per the design of that system, and then it gradually slopes off to lot 3. And so part of the proposed foundation is to have the top of foundation, Kevin, I believe at 127 and change. And so that the top of foundation sits slightly above 28.5. So the top of foundation is about 18 inches above the current top of septic design to the west. And so that's why Kevin had mentioned there was a good amount of fill coming in. But the dashed lines showing the contours below is accurate to the current conditions.
So can we clarify how much fill is going to have to come into this property for this particular proposed design?
I don't have that number right now, but so at the tallest point of that is where this 127 is. So yeah, it would be about 7 feet of fill at that area.
So you're going to put 7 feet on the front of this lot?
Yeah. So the road is about 5 feet higher than the existing condition.
So back to my original question. You're bringing in 7 feet of fill. Do you need a retaining wall in that area?
No, it is pitched to grade to the street over the landscaped areas.
Thank you.
I just have some reference photos I'm looking at, if you don't mind a second. Okay. So in the rear of the property that's abutting the lot line, how close is that retaining wall to the property line, and how high is it going to be at that point?
So it's designed to be less than 4 feet, and it's shown 2 feet off of the property line.
Okay. And what's the slope on the outside part of the west side of that retaining wall, where it's meeting back into grade? So where it goes from 125, 124, 3210 down to 18.
It's not quite 3 to 1. It's closer to 4 to 1.
Okay. Any other questions? So, did you say that this is a net 900 square foot?
From the subdivision plans. The total impervious area is 3388 square feet.
Yep.
And about 2143 of that is the captured roof. That is going to the two separate systems.
So your contention is because we're capturing roof runoff that we're okay in the impervious? I just want to make sure that you're.
No, so I in my drainage report, I did demonstrate the uncaptured, and I did a comparison of the uncaptured runoff versus the existing conditions runoff. And then I demonstrated my calculations that we're capturing and storing and infiltrating within the 72-hour period the entire roof area.
Okay. So Jennifer, can you interpret that for me?
I'm sorry, you're gonna have to say it again. I was actually looking at the.
So we're capturing and sending to the storm tech chambers the entire roof area. And then in my drainage report, I demonstrated that the uncaptured rate, so like, the driveways, the park, the grassed areas is lower than the existing condition for rates and volumes for the 2, the 10, the 25, and the 100-year storms.
So the nature of my question is we're increasing impervious cover by about 30%, maybe even more, 35%. So I'm trying to make sure that we're within what the original proposal is here, or if we feel like it isn't going to have a negative impact on the resources. Jennifer, Kevin, somebody.
Well, the entire roof area will be, captured and retained over time. So, I think the calculations demonstrate that it is less water going there than the previous condition.
Okay,
Jennifer.
so a portion of it is going into the road and the drainage work already. You're taking up all of the stormwater that goes on the additional impervious cover from the roof into the Caltech units.
So yeah, we're sorry. Can you say that again?
Whatever was impervious before is taken up by the road and the drainage work going to their stormwater system, and the additional portion that you're adding by having more impervious cover is taken up by the infiltration systems and the storm tech that you're putting on the property.
I compared it to the existing condition of the site where it was entirely grass.
I think his answer is still yes, Rory.
I know, and I'm looking for a definitive answer rather than one that sort of goes around in circles to get there. So, is that,
So yeah, the rates and volumes are reduced from the existing condition.
okay, so Jennifer, can you give me some confidence that the stormwater on this property is being handled on this property?
Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions from the commission? Okay, any public comment for 12 Goodspeed Lane? Seeing none. But I just do want to note for the record that that I do recall the filling of the isolated land subject to flooding that is located on this property or partly on this property, and that was permitted because they replicated it off on another piece of this development. I think they did it in a 2-to-1 or 3-to-1. I think it was 3-to-1. I think 2,400 feet. They did off this property somewhere else. So just to give people some confidence that we're not just going around filling in wetlands. So they were some BVW replication that was going on in another part of the property. So I assume you want to close, Kevin? Oh, actually, we can't close. We have to continue. Right? Yep, you pointed that out to us. So let's continue to February 7th. If we get the number, I don't think any other questions come up, but I think we should be okay. Hopefully it's a quick in and out on the 7th, okay?
So we're just gonna mention we may not have a quorum for the 7th.
We may not have a quorum for the 7th, although they were appointing somebody tonight. But I don't know if they could Mullins in because they weren't a member yet. They won't get sworn in as a member. So we may have a problem with a quorum on the 7th for this particular item, which means we may have to go to the 28th.
Is there any chance, Rory, that we could do a special hearing for this 1 week from today, just to close it out if we get the DEP number? Try to move things along, only because I have homeowners waiting on this so that they can close on a loan that's going to expire. So I'm just trying to facilitate that.
That's not going to be possible. We're also waiting for the recording information from the extension for this permit. I emailed today that we didn't have that. We'll need to get that in order to issue this permit.
Okay, I can do that.
And I thought the round circles might have been your no disturbance zone markers, but it doesn't look like that's it. Is that just your?
So that's my erosion control symbol. Perimeter, sorry, sediment control.
Thanks. Okay, so you will want to show the no disturbance zone markers on the plan then?
Okay, yeah, I can show that.
Jennifer, what are our flexibilities on dealing with the issue that Ethan's raising?
You still need a DEP file number.
Yeah, I know, and they've been, anywhere from 1 week to 4 weeks. You never know. And I have no idea if they've got questions or anything too. So
we've been in contact with the DEP. They said that they'll issue a number. They had I don't know, a mistake in the payment that we had sent in, and the numbers weren't correct. And they said as soon as we present a check to them, they'll issue a number. So assuming that happens in the next week, I'd love the chance to get on. It becomes a similar question as to 2 weeks ago that we were talking about on lot 5, with the planning board, and it's been months and months trying to get this through just to get to this point. It's really just not a fair process for the buyer. So that's my only angle on it, pending the DEP number.
You have an approved permit, and then you chose to make it larger and come back to the commission. But the issue is we don't have a meeting next week. The meeting is February 7th.
Let's continue. what happens if this gets continued to February 7th and we don't have a DEP number? I really don't have a choice. Does your buyer's loan expire at that point?
It does. It truly expires, you know, in about 10 days from now. So this was kind of the last chance to get in by the end of the month.
Yeah, you know, Ethan, you know from last week that I'm very sympathetic to the issue that you got before you. You know, and I know that you know that because that's why you're asking this question again of me. I'm trying to be conscious of that. At the same time, I don't know that I have a choice. You know, I mean, it is possible to have a quorum on February 7th, but I don't know how to have a meeting before then without a commitment of a DEP number.
Okay.
So let's maybe something comes to me in my sleep tonight. I don't know. So I will think about it. Maybe, you know, Ben or Michael, you know, shoot me a message and say, oh, what if we can do this? And then we've got to check with Jennifer to see if we can do it. But yeah, I think if we could all vote tonight on this, we will.
Yeah.
And that's the shame of this. So.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the consideration at least, and you know, perhaps if I hear back tomorrow on the number, then I'll reach out and we'll
Yeah, I would suggest you do that, and maybe we huddle again and figure something out. But I cannot recall in my 5 years scheduling a meeting. But for you, Ethan, maybe we will. So
appreciate it.
So let's just continue to make a motion to continue to February 7th.
Carol, second.
Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Speedy, aye.
Caulfield's Carol with the second, 3-0 to continue. Thanks for your presentation tonight, guys.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, so next up is, my goodness, I can't, 2 screens, 507 Foundry Street. And someone could remind me who I have to bring up.
I just brought her up.
Robert Crowell is the engineer, and Michelle, those are the two we need.
Okay, I'll bring up Robert as well. I am really struggling with this. I don't know why.
Right, what do you have? 2 screens? You used to have 3?
3, yeah.
Makes you feel bad. I have 1 laptop screen.
I know. Believe me, it's really a really weird problem to have. Okay, so both Michelle and Robert are promoted. If they could just turn on the video, introduce themselves, and tell us where we are with this project. Oh,
Michelle, you need to unmute yourself.
yeah, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
Unmute. Hi,
Hey,
I'm Michelle Grenier, the wetland scientist. Yes. So we have our DP number now, and Rob got the water things back, and it's just the leaves that were on that. So the iron, he has the lab things, but there he is. Okay. So he has lab thing from the water, and it was just the leaves that were doing it. That's all that is.
So,
Rob, are you here?
yes, I did. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Can you just introduce yourself for the record?
Yeah, Robert Kroll, Bob Kroll, Kroll Engineering. And So on the 13th, 3 days after the meeting, I went out and I sampled the water and I grabbed the foam. Now, when I went out there, the foam, it had been really cold. So the foam, it just,
Froze.
The foam was the iron. Yeah, the foam was the
cups
iron.
of the foam, and I brought it back to the mountain. And so basically, they said the iron had 17.6 milligrams per liter of iron, which is very high, and the foam, it was high. It was just it was all condensed. It was like all the foam just kept packing down, and I took it, and it was 2,200 milligrams per liter, and that's all it was. It was just iron. So.
Do we have a sense of where it's coming from, Bob?
It just looks like it's subsurface water. It might bubble out, and that's why it's bubbling. I'm not. I don't know exactly where it's coming from, but
Usually it's from oak leaves and pine leaves. That's what does it.
Well, that's what does it. But I think it's subsurface groundwater that just happens to break out there, I guess, and that's what created the foam. So I was certain it was iron when I first saw it. After I went out there, after you had mentioned it, and Envirotech certainly.
Bob's internet connection is not working tonight.
That area is covered by oaks and pines, and that's what's creating that.
I think, Michelle, though, the issue that Bob is sort of pointing out is it isn't just the iron itself. It is that there is subsurface water that's coming in through there, infiltrating through. It's actually eroding the bank of the stream as well, right where this iron is. And that was what was causing some of the concern, and that's why I was sort of wondering what the source was, because it is eroding. You can tell that there's a little inlet in the stream where this iron is congregating at this point, this foam, and concentrating. And I'm just wondering where that subsurface water that's causing it to sort of even erode the bank of the stream is coming from. So, Jennifer, do you have any insight into that?
Not unless there's old drainage from inside the building.
Or a nearby building. I don't know that there is a nearby building in that stream, but that can cause it too. I saw it in a house that was doing it too, in another town, but it could be from something that's going in the river upstream.
Yeah, this is coming out right there. I'm telling you. But Bob saw it. It's bubbling there. Yeah. You can see the water coming out of the stream bank into the stream there. It is some sort of subsurface water that's coming through there. The source of it is, I'm glad that it's iron, not something more, problematic. But I am just a little bit concerned. Maybe it's drainage that's going into some sort of, stormwater system off the building that's just draining out of whatever system it's going into, or maybe it was just put into a stone hole in the ground and it's just coming out. So I don't know. So, I don't have the answer to that, and I'm glad it's iron. We'll go from there. So, what else do you have for us tonight?
I believe that was after the last meeting. That was the only question. I think everything else was pretty much answered.
Yes, it was just the DEP number. We're waiting for the hard copy of the revised plans, but I'm told we'll get them tomorrow. And then the iron in the river.
Okay. So, Jennifer, can you give me some, and maybe you didn't see it, so it's hard for you to make any sort of judgment on this. And maybe just give me some sort of general, what should my level of concern be about this infiltrating water that's eroding the stream bank, leaving the iron deposit there? Am I to be concerned about it?
I don't believe so. If we want to just contain the, keep it from eroding the bank anymore, we could just take some stone, some riprap, and just put it right there so it doesn't erode the stream bank anymore. We could do that, I guess. So it just looks like it's subsurface water that's just coming through at that point. Like you said, it might be an old drainage thing or
There's
something,
no
but I don't
question.
see it coming out.
The time that I was there, it had been, we've had a really lot of moisture in the last, you know,
Yep. Yep.
so
Hmm.
the fact that there's groundwater doesn't surprise me at all.
Right.
You know, so Jennifer, can you give me some feedback, maybe comment on Bob's suggestion of riprap there to sort of, you know, decrease the erosion that might be happening?
You may want to find out the source. So you could probably look for doing some illicit discharge testing for the building itself and see if there's a pipe that goes underground that's discharging from either the building or the parking lot area.
Right. Is that something that we can do as part of the conditions for this?
You
Or-
can condition that.
That would be great.
Okay, that makes me more comfortable.
Yep.
Any other questions from the commission? And it was as orange as you can believe. I'm just telling you, you know the color that school uses on their uniforms, it was that orange.
Yep.
Okay,
Yes, it was.
That's leaves, that's the leaves.
so,
Definitely.
any other comments from the commission? We're good, Ben?
Done. We're good.
We're good.
Any public comment, 507 Foundry Street? So seeing none, I assume you want to close?
Yes,
Yes.
Make a motion to close 507 Foundry.
Carol, second.
Roll call vote, Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Spady, aye.
Caulfield's Carol, the seconds, opposed 3-0. So I'm just gonna condition that, we, you know, some illicit discharge, study is performed, and that we do some sort of, erosion control on the side of the stream there, riprap or something to decrease any sort of further incursion into the stream bank. So make a motion to issue a notice of intent and order conditions for permit for work and order conditions. Oh my goodness, really, 2 screens. It's permit for work and order conditions for 507 Foundry Street, noting the edit conditions of illicit discharge evaluation and erosion control at the stream bank in the form of riprap or some other comparable mechanism.
80 second.
Roll call vote, Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Spady, aye.
Caulfield's Speedy with the second, 3-0. Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Jennifer, as well. Oh, and you owe Jennifer hard copies.
Yes. She'll have them tomorrow morning.
We
Thank
won't do without it.
Yep,
Great
okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yep, bye.
Okay, so next up is 58 Mill. And somebody's promoting all sorts of people, so.
Good evening.
Garrett.
Sorry, I had a little glitch there. My video and audio hung up just for a second. So this evening, I'm Garrett Tunison from Tunison Environmental Consultants.
Do we need to bring up anybody else? Mike?
I think Mike's here. I don't know if he's necessary. I believe he's here but listening.
Here to assist,
Yes.
if necessary. Gotcha.
Yes. So this evening, what I wanted to do is just give a brief overview because I know this project's been going on for a while. And then I wanted to talk about a couple of the comments in the most recent updates and then take questions if there are any. What I wanted to begin with was, this project has been around for a while before the commission. I know it was even before this commission, it was going on for several years. Over that time period, there were a lot of issues and there were a lot of challenges that had to be overcome. There were issues, of course, with rare species as well. And the project has changed from 8-lot subdivision, and it's been reduced down to a 6-lot subdivision. There were issues with the configuration, and there were requests for restoration of land that was highly altered, and that was by natural heritage. I know the stormwater has shifted slightly, and the basins have changed. They now are infiltration basins. Their locations have changed, and those adjustments were made due to the close proximity to the wetland resource areas. So a lot has changed, especially over the last several months. We've tried to really address every issue that this commission has had, and we want to make sure that as far as moving forward, that the conservation land is accessible, and those are the things we're working on currently. So one of the questions that we saw was regarding the waiver and public benefit. As far as the public benefit, we have created, we requested the LOMA, which now gives an established elevation for the floodplain in this area. The 2 to 100 year flood event peak flows are going to be less than existing conditions. So we're trying to address flooding. We know that was one of the concerns we heard from several of the neighbors about flooding issues. And I know some of that's because of the way the road's configured and the size of the culvert and those issues, but we tried to do what we could do on this site to address those issues. We did expand this compensatory storage. It is beyond what was required. We wanted to make sure that we put in as much compensatory storage as possible for future flooding. We created, because we're daylighting the culverts, we created 36 feet of bank, and we are restoring, and I apologize, I mentioned last time it was I think 30-some thousand square feet. One of the numbers, the actual ecological restoration area for natural heritage, the number that I had was an old number, and it wasn't located on the plans. I did find the exact amount, and that exact amount was 10,775.15 square feet. So that number I didn't find listed on the plan, but it was there. It's actually on the PDF. If you click on it in Adobe Acrobat Professional, it pops up. So that's how I located it. So in addition to that, we had just shy of 8,000 additional square feet that beyond the 10,000 that we've identified on the site to try to restore as much area as possible as part of the betterment. And of course, that's improvement for wildlife habitat. Also, there is over 9 acres of conservation land. So the majority of the site will be put under a conservation restriction, not to be altered. So those are the public benefits from the project that we have identified. There will be no significant impacts, adverse impacts to any of the wetland resource areas for this regarding their functions and values. That's partially because of what we are doing with the restorations and the replication areas, and with the mitigation, the additional mitigation like compensatory storage and wildlife habitat restoration. So we feel we've met the requirements of the bylaw and in regards to the waiver requests. And those were explained in the letter that I submitted and we talked about last time. So those are really our, those were the most recent questions. There were a few others. It was more housekeeping, and I believe those have been addressed. So are there any questions?
Jennifer, do we want to hear from anybody else on this, LEC, or you want to pipe in, or you want to give me some?
Yeah, I just brought LEC up. We did get their final letter, so Mark will probably go over that with you. And we did get a final stormwater report from Woodward and Kern.
Okay, Mark, why don't you identify yourself for the record? And
Sure, I'm Mark Manganello with LEC Environmental Consultants. We've been assisting the commission with reviewing this project since it started. As Garrett said, it's undergone significant revisions. There have been quite a few comments. I think, as I wrote in my letter, they've largely addressed the technical comments we had. We started with things like a stream and wetland crossing that was wider than we thought it should be, and they did a good job of narrowing that down to the minimum to minimize wetland impacts. They relocated and reconfigured the compensatory flood storage area and the wetland replication area in response to a comment, which was a significant improvement. I won't speak in great detail to the engineering side of it, as Woodard and Kern was responsible for that, but they did relocate one of the infiltration basins to sort of make the entrance area work a little bit better as well in response to some comments. So I think they've largely addressed the comments. The question for the commission now is, are you comfortable granting a waiver from the performance standards that they cannot comply with based on the level of mitigation they're providing, the public interest, and the efforts to avoid and minimize impacts as much as possible? I think they've sort of provide.
Mark, can you give me some insight? One of the biggest challenges we've had on this site from the first filing and continued over to this filing, although it seems to be a little bit better on this filing, is the impact to rare species and wildlife habitat in general. Can you give us some feedback on that particular issue? Have they adequately addressed that? Is the 9 acres of conservation restriction enough to offset the rare species habitat and preserve enough of it that we feel comfortable that that's going to happen?
Well, there's two sort of separate but intertwined considerations there. The rare species part of it, as you know, is reviewed by Natural Heritage. Like, they have the say on that. The applicant's team has been, I would say, negotiating with Natural Heritage throughout. The last notice of intent, you might remember, involved an agreement with Natural Heritage that involved setting aside some land, restoring some land as they are now, but it also involved a payment to them. Natural Heritage decided it was a take of rare species, and the on-site mitigation that was provided was not sufficient. So they were asking for a check, basically, to increase the amount of mitigation to satisfy their concerns about impacts to rare species wildlife habitat. Since then, they revised the project design. They reconfigured the subdivision. They scaled it back, as Garrett indicated, from, was it 8 to 6 lots? Yeah, and that allowed them to reduce the overall construction footprint of the project, including some of the rare species habitat. And according to the communications which they've provided to the commission, Natural Heritage still sees it as a take of rare species habitat, but they've identified the mitigation that's being provided on site as being sufficient. The payment is no longer necessary. And Garrett and Jennifer, I think, probably have their finger on the pulse of that better than I do, and might be able to clarify that. So actually, it would be good if they could do that, and then I'll speak a little bit about wildlife habitat.
Garrett, Jennifer, somebody?
Yes, so basically, we are at that stage with Natural Heritage where they are accepting the 9 acre, basically we'll have the 9 acres, but as far as the restoration of the 10,775 square feet, we are in the process of setting up the area for the conservation restriction. So that's where we are right now, and we're moving forward next with the conservation and management plan. So that's the next step to move forward in the permitting process, and that's where we are with natural heritage currently. So they're accepting everything that we've done. They're on board with everything that we've done till now.
Anything else I need to know about that, Jennifer?
So there's additional, I think Garrett may have mentioned it already, almost more than 7,000 square feet of eco restoration and enhancement areas as well.
So that's beyond the restoration area that was out in sort of the rear left of the property for the natural heritage process.
Yes, correct.
Okay, where is that area?
It's actually 6 or 7 areas. We tried to accumulate as much area that we could for restoration. So we've actually cut section off one of the backyards. We took an area where we have another area too, and that's in the eastern portion of the project. So it's towards towards the vernal pool area. So it's out in that direction of the actual areas of the site that we have identified within the limit of work. So there's also a small rock wall and swale that go along the back edge of the property. We found a strip in there where we could also restore, so we have that area. And then, Mark, the other portions are in the eastern portion of the site around the stormwater basin that we relocated. There's also 2 enhancement areas that lack a significant shrub layer. So we want to restore those. So those are the areas we're just calling, we're not calling those restoration because we're not going to, add all the different vegetative layers. It's just the shrub layer. So there's 2 of those. One's is just slightly south on the western portion of the site, just below the infiltration basin 1. And then the other one is on the western side of the bridge crossing, adjacent to where the wetland restoration area is from the bridge impacts, the installation of the crossing. So those are the 2 areas for the ecological enhancement. Now we also have a restoration area just below where the basin will be located, basin 1, and then we have another restoration area that's located where the stream channel will be created along the banks, and then it extends up the slope and adjacent to the bank. So those are the areas for the ecological restorations.
Got it. And the conservation and management permit process, that it will occur, you need to go through the MIPA process, right? Do an ENF with MIPA. And once that's done, then you can get into the conservation and management process. And that's assuming you have an order of conditions from the Conservation Commission.
Yes. And the agent at Natural Heritage requested that we basically prepare the conservation restriction, and that once we were through with that, then file for the conservation and management plan and MIPA. So that was what the order that they requested at that time. So.
You just want to make sure we have a draft of the CR so we can comment before Natural Heritage approves it.
Yes. So we want to get that to you soon. Once if we get the order of conditions relatively soon, we will follow very shortly with the conservation restriction plan. You can see that. We can comment if there's any adjustments. We'll make those, and then we will, complete the conservation and management package, get it off the Natural Heritage, and then once they have it and they seem like they're okay with it, then we will immediately follow that with filing the ENF. So that's our roadmap moving forward.
Okay. Did you have anything else to add, Mark? Wildlife habitat?
Yeah, well, just there's sort of a nuance here that you may all have grasped, but I just wanted to mention it that, there's the Natural Heritage Review of Rare Species Habitat. That is a wildlife habitat issue, obviously, and it's under a separate set of regulations from your bylaw, but your bylaw also protects the interest of wildlife habitat associated with resource areas and the buffer zone, I believe. And so, that's sort of a secondary consideration. So I think based on where they're at with natural heritage, we can all agree that they're in the process of satisfying natural heritage's regulations, right? They still have to go through the CMP process, but you know, they've reached an agreement with them in that regard. That's separate from, you know, sort of quote other wildlife considerations associated with the project in the resource areas. There are other, you know, wildlife species that utilize the property that aren't rare species, I guess would be one way to put it. And this is an ACEC, and you know, your regulations essentially stipulate that projects in an ACEC should be given a high level of scrutiny. So that's really the question for the commission. You know, the natural heritage issue is essentially wrapped up, but it's a sort of a separate jurisdiction. They're separate from that is the consideration of wildlife habitat under the bylaw. They've mitigated impacts to resource areas in accordance with your regulations, and Garrett submitted an extensive report on that. So, you know, the wildlife habitat functions associated with the BVW that's going to be filled, for example, are presumed to be mitigated by the wetland replication area, right? That's sort of the principle behind replicating resource areas. So, you know, that's kind of the overall question for the commission with wildlife habitat. My opinion is they've mitigated in accordance with sort of standard practice for mitigating resource area impacts. They've gone above and beyond with some of the things that Garrett just described, the additional ecological enhancements. The project is still going to have, you know, a significant impact in jurisdictional buffer zones. I don't know that they ever went through the exercise of quantifying how many square feet of 50-foot buffer or 100-foot buffer is going to be impacted. But, you know, it's a project significantly in conservation jurisdiction, so there are impacts to resource areas and to buffer zones that are sort of difficult to quantify from a wildlife habitat perspective, I guess is what I'm trying to say. If the commission's comfortable with the scope of mitigation that's being provided, sort of broadly speaking, then I think it's reasonable to assert that the interest of wildlife habitat would be protected.
The species that we used for the ecological restorations, and even those in the wetland, are all species that occur on the site, and they were the ones that I chose, I believe, have the highest wildlife value out of the plants that I identified on the site to use for these ecological restoration areas. And to further that statement, I look at the connections between, as far as from an ecological standpoint, I use Dr. Reddington's field guide and also DeGraff. So those are the two authors that I refer to when I look and I see how much wildlife habitat value does this plant species offer. So that's how I quantify when I try to do a ecological restoration.
Okay. Great. I appreciate the input, guys. Now we've got to make that evaluation, I guess. Jennifer, anything else? And we didn't talk about stormwater yet, but I don't know if we're ready to move on to that, or we get all this area covered here.
I agree with Mark's assessment. I think they've met their requirement, and then they've gone above with the additional restoration and enhancement areas.
Okay. Okay. Any questions from the commission before we move on to stormwater? You guys just like my questions so much, huh?
Good.
It's like we get together before the meeting and we decide I'm the one who's going to ask questions, which we don't. I just ask them all. From now on, I'm just going to say, okay, Mike, you first. Okay. Listen, I've only got 2 screens, okay? Jennifer, do we need to talk about stormwater and any other pertinent issues here?
Well, Woodland and Curran submitted their letter that said they thought the general compliance with the stormwater regulations has been met. And I did have a conversation with her, asking her if that meant that each stormwater standard had been met. That is her assessment.
Okay.
Bordering land subject to flooding is still a little difficult to see on the plans, and to be able to confirm that the incremental compensation matches at each elevation of what's being filled. The table does certainly show that they're providing much more floodplain area than what is existing and what they're going to fill. But I would suggest putting a condition that we get another inset of that portion of the plan so we can actually confirm that. Woodward and Curran only looked at the table. They didn't look at the plan, as I understand it.
Okay. There was another question, is if I recall, that that we wanted some assessment of the impervious on the proposed design of the development, so that
For each lot,
yeah.
the one for each lot, Garrett pointed out today, it is actually in the plan set. It's on sheet 10.
Awesome.
So we do have the number for the impervious amount for each lot that we were looking for, and we'll include that in the order of conditions, so that if there are any amendments, any project that comes back before us with an increase, they'll have to treat the stormwater on their site.
Right. That's the challenge that we have with these projects that are, right next to wetlands. As you go to sell the homes, you got to change the footprint, and we're just trying to make sure that we're within the original approval. I think it's one of the things that you guys may not have had projects before me like this, but the original approval was, I had nothing to do with. I wasn't on the commission at the time, but I do very much hold true to the original commission approved this project. How do I make sure it works now? And without having to sort of put you through the ringer all over again, which we don't want to do. This has been a long project for everyone involved. So, I think just a couple of things to sort of consider here. Jennifer, anything else you want me to cover here before we get into more deliberations here? Okay, so just a couple of things. I think that the normal conservation markers that we use are probably going to be insufficient on this property, and we're probably going to ask for post and rail fences to make sure that we understand that that's the end of the property. There's no going beyond it. People get those little posts, they lose what their meaning is. A fence is a fence. It's hard to go by it. I think also there's going to be some sort of marker for the CR, and we'll probably leave that up to Jennifer to evaluate what that is and give you the final design of what that is, so that we can make sure that the conservation restriction is clearly demarcated and identified. The other thing is that I think we're going to say that lots 1 and 2, because they're right abutting the buffer zone there, we're going to have those filed separate notice of intent. Okay, I don't want to wrap it up in this whole thing, because we just end up with I can't tell you how many meetings in a row now I've been dealing with a different project that had all the house lots on the original permit. Now they're wanting to change them, and it just, trying to deal with it has really been a real problem. So we're going to take lots 1 and 2, and they're going to have to file NOIs. Okay. So I think those, any comments from you, Garrett, or, I don't know.
I don't think so. I would like, right now, as far as the conservation restriction, we were looking at the concrete bounds along the project's edge, and then in the back, metal pipe or rebar. It's not so be protruding out of the ground for anybody to fall on. They're set very low. That's typically what we've used. So if they if there are any changes, or suggestions, we would love to have them. And if possible, like in the next week or so I could get this moving. This is something I'm working on right now. That would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
So any comments from the commission on this? Any questions? And then we can go into maybe sort of a more deliberative discussion if we don't have any more questions.
I'm pretty comfortable.
So go ahead, Jennifer.
I was just gonna say, if you're finished with accepting new information, then typically you would close the public hearing and then have your deliberation. Unless you think you're gonna have some questions, then for Garrett.
I had one, so I just wanted to one of the questions here that we heard from a butter is, now I want to respect this very much, and you sort of touched on it a little bit, Garrett, in your conversation, is that this part of town has historically been subject to flooding. And I think that if you can give us some information that informs us and informs the public about how their situation is either going to improve from this. I mean, I know we're doing some things with some of the drainage in this area. We're increasing flood storage capacity in some way. Can you give us some sort of feedback specifically to that question and address that to the commission so that we can feel comfortable that the public's concern over this is being met?
Yes, I would start with even the stormwater system, the way it's designed with the large, deep sumps. The water that's on the site, even the existing conditions, we're talking about pre-development. From what the engineers explained and stated, that even the stormwater system will hold more water for events occurring from the 2 to 100-year flood events in the system than currently do. So you're not going to get a ton of runoff coming from, storm events. So right now we're going to be able to infiltrate the peak flows. That's what he was stating in his in the stormwater report. So that's additional storage capacity from the site. So we're addressing the actual project and then surrounding landscape, the areas that drain to the swales into the stormwater basins. These will be picked up and held in the infiltration basins. And if for some reason we'll get even a larger event, there is the emergency overflow. Now, in addition to the stormwater system, if I recall, I'm trying to remember the numbers off the top of my head. I thought it was increased. There was an additional approximate, I believe it was something like, I think 1/3 of the volume that was necessary, that was an additional, that we're adding beyond the compensatory storage area. And this is for the area, of course, on the south side of the road. So this is, we're going to be able to address that at that location. Above that, we cannot address that. And I think because of the road, the way the road is structured right now and the size of the culvert, you'd have to expand that. And that would mean, the road work, that would be the town. And I do understand, I know the town has a lot of projects and there's other areas where they have more pressing safety issues where I think that they're going to be addressed first. So I don't know when they'll get to this, this stormwater culvert, but we're doing all that we can on the property. So we have taken that into consideration. I know that the neighbors were concerned. So we did put as much as we could in the compensatory storage area. And then we also, like I said, the stormwater systems was sort of over-designed, which is good.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. Anybody have any questions before we go to close this and deliberate?
Oh, there was one other thing I wanted to ask the board, the commission. The CR, would it be possible to take a vote for the conservation, to hold the conservation restriction?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So any public comment for 58 Mill Street? Okay, so seeing none, I'm going to make a motion to close the hearing on 58 Mill Street.
Carol, second.
Roll call vote, Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Feeny, aye.
Caulfield's Carol, second, 3-0 to close. Okay, so from my perspective, I believe that you know one of the biggest issues here is meeting waiver standards, right? I mean, we're in an ACEC and we've got buffer zones and rare species and wildlife habitat, and we've got a stream that they're reconstructing and underneath the roadway, and all sorts of things that are going on here. I certainly feel like with the CR that's happening and the additional ecological restoration that's happening and the improvement in the stormwater situation on this particular piece of property and is what a very wet part of town. I think the public interest is being met. I believe that they've come to us with the best alternative. So I think they've done their alternative analysis. They originally came to us with a couple of different 8-lot subdivisions, and they've actually come to us with a 6-lot subdivision now, which is decreasing the impacts on the resources. And I think that they've given us sufficient evidence that there will be no adverse impacts on the resources, all the various resources, including wildlife habitat. So that's my take on this, and when we vote, we'll make sure that we'll say the waiver requirements are met, unless you guys have different opinions.
I completely agree that the waiver requirements have been met, considering everything we've seen on this project, coming from 8 to 6, and yeah, I'm satisfied with that aspect.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm really happy with how it turned out. So.
Yeah, this is a different project than it was 2.5 years ago. So okay. I think they took the original reports that they got back from the consultants on both the stormwater side and the wetland and wildlife side, and really did what they were supposed to do. And the fact that Natural Heritage is not requiring them to offset through a monetary donation is a pretty big indication of where they've come on this as well. So the fact
I do think that work with National Heritage is a public benefit, even if it is a monetary contribution. Just that's my 2 cents on that, regardless of where it stands. I mean, we all benefit from National Heritage. Yeah,
the one challenge with that is just that it ends up being outside of town. Yes, I mean, I think that when I think we talk about public here, it's the town people, because that's who our town bylaw is about. But I agree with you. The work that Natural Heritage does is very, very important work, and the biodiversity and everything else that they ensure is essential to maintaining an ecosystem that is robust and survivable. So, any other questions, concerns from you guys? I think I'm ready to go to a vote, but I think we talked about the conditions here. Jennifer, do I need to condition anything about the CMP or anything along those lines?
Yep, you have a draft set of conditions that was in your packet,
okay,
and touched on the few items that we had questions on. So you have a set of conditions before you.
So do I need to add anything to them? Everything in there that we've already talked about. Okay. So the one thing I do want to make here is, as long as it's in your conditions, we didn't talk about it, but and I can't ask for any more input. But the stream, and it was something that Jennifer pointed out to me, and I forgot to talk about it, but that it has to be uniform and contiguous. There's going to be no plunge pools on either side of it, because otherwise we lose some of the benefit there. So. I assume that's in the conditions. I want to state it for the public record, however, so, okay. I almost covered everything, Jennifer.
It was in the conditions, and if you approve the conditions, then we were good.
I know, I just wanted it on the record, though.
See, bro, if you didn't bring it up, I was gonna, so.
Okay, anything else? So I'm gonna issue the permit for work and order conditions, and then do we have to take a separate vote on being the holder of the CR?
I think that's what he was asking you for, yeah.
Okay, I'm just, getting some guidance from you of the proper procedure here. So, noting that the waiver requirements have been met as previously discussed, I'm gonna make a motion to issue a permit for work and order conditions for 58 Mill Street. Lots 1 and 2 NOI is in your conditions, right? Okay. According to the conditions in our packet.
Carl, second.
Roll call vote, Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Spady, aye.
Okay, so Caulfield's Carol with a second, 3-0 for approval. And now I'm going to make a motion for the Conservation Commission to hold the conservation restriction being proposed.
Spady, second.
Roll call vote, Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Spady, aye.
Caulfield Spady with the second, 3-0 to hold the CR.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we did it. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Garrett. Appreciate it. Thanks, Mike, if you're still on. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You too.
Welcome. Bye.
Okay, so we are on to 170 Chestnut Street.
Yep, they requested a continuance to February 28th.
Make a motion to continue 170 Chestnut Street to February 28th.
Carol, second.
Roll call vote, Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Spady, aye.
Caulfield's Carol with a second, 3-0 to continue to February 28th. Next up is 91 Union Street, which already has a continuance to February 28th, or we have to vote on that?
They're requesting you vote on it.
Make a motion to continue 91 Union Street to February 28th.
Spady, second.
Roll call vote, Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Spady, aye.
Caulfield Spady with a second, 3-0 to continue 91 Union. Okay, so 20 Goodspeed Lot 5. So we voted on this at the last hearing, and you have created now, we created the boondoggle for you. And
No.
You're welcome.
I apologize.
I admit I had to take the easy way out. So we're revising. It would take me a full week to go through that whole file and redo the order. So I'm suggesting we add one condition that basically says at your regular meeting of January 24, you reviewed the request for an amendment to the order of conditions to increase impervious surfaces for the house and driveway at Lot 5 and to provide stormwater management. And then there's I list the plan with the appropriate date, and then there's also a condition there that the homeowner shall be responsible for the operation and maintenance plan dated January 18th, and that condition is perpetual.
Any comments from anybody?
That makes sense.
Okay, so any public comment on this? Seeing none, make a motion to accept the amended order of conditions.
Carol, second.
Roll call vote, Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Spady, aye.
Caulfield's Carol with the second, 3-0 to approve the amended order of conditions. We have no certificates of compliance. The meeting minutes, we saw the executive session ones. So I would vote that we accept the minutes, but not release them on the executive session. So did anybody have any comments about the executive session minutes?
None.
Okay, so I make a motion to accept the executive session minutes, but not release them.
Spady, second.
Roll call vote, Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Spady, aye.
Caulfield Spadia with the second, 3-0 to accept but not release the 110 executive session minutes. Okay, next up is the Tufts Farm lease. This was a discussion that we started. I think at this point, I'd like to rescind our original vote to award the lease toward the lease, and then we'll, after we rescind it, I'll make another motion to say where we're going to go on this. But we can talk about it. If there's any comments, concerns, questions, I think we sort of talked this to death.
I don't have any comments. I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Mike, you okay?
Yeah.
Open to it, Mike. You got anything else?
I mean, no, it's a tough thing. So
I know.
Yeah. No, and I think though, but I think that from my perspective, I just want you to understand, certainly from my perspective, we are trying to make this successful.
oh, yeah,
And I think that where we were at this is we were no longer comfortable with the success of a project of putting a 10-year lease in place. I think that's just what it comes down to. We want to make this a successful project. So I think in order for us to do that, we need to shorten the length of the lease, get some momentum going, and not have this big long tail on this thing. Get some momentum going, and then we can get this thing moving. And that's the way I think it has to go, from my viewpoint. So,
But you're dead on. I mean, that's my assessment to a T on this.
yeah, I think this actually is going to increase the probability of success.
Yeah.
That's really what I believe. So, for everyone involved, and it may not feel that way in the moment, but I truly believe that a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, we're going to say that was the right decision. So, I make a motion to rescind our vote to award the lease of Tufts Farm to Michael Luke.
Carol, second.
Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Carol, aye.
Spady, aye.
So Caulfield's Carol with the second to rescind our vote to the award of the lease. 3-0. So now I'd like to follow that up with I want to make a motion to issue an RFP for the lease of Tufts Farm for an initial term of 1 year with a 3-year renewal. Okay, that'll give us the 1 year to get some momentum going, and then another 3 to get more stuff done.
Yeah.
So I think that's the time frame we need to look at on this. I think it'll allow us to look at the master plan and have a clear vision of what we want to accomplish in a short period of time.
Which I think realistically is the only way it gets done with even our own term limits.
I think so.
Not term limits, but terms here. You know,
Correct.
commissioners change, ideas change. It's a more realistic timescale. I like that.
Yeah.
I agree. Agreed.
Okay, so Jennifer, do you need any more information from us?
Just if there's any other changes to the provisions. It already talks about addressing the master plan. Is there anything else that you want to put in there other than the time frame? Because I'm looking at it and it's 24 pages and I thought, oh, why is it so long? We can make this much more concise. So if there's something that you want to really focus on or narrow down, then it'd be good to know now, then I can really pinpoint that. But if you know it.
I really don't know it. I think we do want to chunk it up.
Yeah, it's funny because I thought the same thing. It was huge.
Do we have funding for the master plan? I mean, and that's a naive question maybe from my point, but there's a lot of goals there. And I'm just curious as to if there's any additional resources to expend to it.
We do have some funding for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is that earmarked for specific portions?
It's earmarked for the farm.
Great.
So we don't have money for the whole plan.
Correct.
I think the original plan was like 160, 170,000. And that was a couple of years ago. So it's probably at least a third or 40% more at this point.
Yeah, we don't have that much. We have enough probably to get started.
Yeah, really,
Oh,
our
I
conservation.
love the location. I love the location of it on the other side of Flame.
I would love to see some parking so people could use it a little bit more easily. It's super hard to access for most people right now.
That's in the plan.
Yeah, no, I know. That's, I just wasn't sure.
Definitely, that's one of the initial plans. That initial part of the plan is we'd really like to be able to do that front part first. So, okay, so I make a motion to issue an RFP for Tufts Farm lease with initial 1-year term, 3-year renewal.
Carol, second.
Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Yeah.
So Caulfield's Carol with the second, 3-0 to issue the RFP for Tufts Farm. Okay.
On that same note, I know we have now passed that point, but if additional help is needed over there, you guys let me know. I know Jennifer, Mike, you guys are more involved in that, but I'm happy to get involved in that project.
Okay. Great. Next up is environmental planner updates.
I gave you a copy of the draft annual report. I don't know if you had anything to add to that. I think the only thing we're trying to figure out is what are the additional local permits, right? So we have the number of orders and determinations, but we really are issuing 2 at the same time. So we're just trying to narrow down all the rest of the permits that we do issue as well. Andrea left a pretty good list of things to include, so I had a nice idea of what projects you needed to report on in the past year.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that we talked about all the Boy Scout projects and all the trail work we've done, right? I mean, it's one of the most visible things that we do, and I know that Chris Patrick and Jonathan Chase do a great job with the volunteer work they do. So, I'm actually trying to scroll through this to see something here.
It was in the packet, right?
Yeah, no, it's page 29. That's my problem.
You said page 29?
Yeah.
I can share a screen if you want.
Would you please?
Sure.
All right, I could do it too.
Whoever wants to.
Just let me know that you see it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that there's a lot of stuff we do, and I think that and I think you captured it. So I'm all the things I kept on thinking about. Oh yeah, it's there. The trail work, the forestry grant, the other things that go along. So I mean, I think it's great. We're accomplishing, especially during this time of COVID, where we're a little bit restricted on some of the activities that we can do. It would be nice to sort of get back out there and do some other things. I mean, there's some other things that we haven't gotten to, that I'd like to get onto a list at some point, but that takes volunteers too. So we've been a little maxed out here, so not for sure. So, but I mean, the forestry project, I'd really like to figure out how to start working on that. I mean, we spent the money. Let's get out there and start doing that. That's that Wheaton Farm really is a wonderful piece of property, and it rivals Borderland in its size. So you really ought to really think about some of the stuff that goes on out there and take care of that piece of property. And we can start opening it up a little bit more if we do some of that forestry work and make sure it's healthy for decades to come. That's my concern about doing the forestry work, is making sure it's healthy, that it doesn't get devastated by these storms that are coming through, because it's all there's no understory. If we can't get understory, it's not going to survive. So.
I mean, I went to NRT camp as a kid, and our base of operations was in the barn across from. So it kills me to see the state of that one. I would love to see us get that up and running again.
That's the next RFP.
I know, I'm sure it is.
Well, we do have funds for that. It's just getting somebody to do the work is the issue. So.
The bidding process is tough.
Yeah, it's very tough, especially these days.
Yes, it is. That's the next item on your agenda.
Yeah, so I'm good with the annual report, Jennifer, so.
Thank you. Yeah, Sam Wright Field, today was the deadline for the second round of bids. We had 10 bidders, only one was not responsive, didn't follow directions. But the bids ranged from about 40,000 to 200,000. So this is a big range. So I'll be checking the references and meeting with town council and then trying to get this off the ground.
Okay. Fingers crossed.
Quick question about how are you guys doing with the packets? Do you have enough information, too much? Are you okay with how it's being sent to you?
I'm totally fine with how it's being sent to me. I don't know if anyone feels it differently. Can I ask a question on Sam Wright Field?
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just curious. So we got a grant to do that work. It looks like work has been done. What happens if the town has to match 25% of what's spent? What happens if it isn't spent? Can you do more work with that, or does it get returned?
There's a chance to maybe roll it over into the next fiscal year.
Okay.
Right. So I just spoke with the grant manager today, and I said, "Yep, we had to rebid the project because everything was overbid the first time. We had to reduce the scope of the project. And so now we'll be spending less money." So sometimes they do let you roll it over into the next fiscal year. And I did apply, I put 3 letters of interest for the next round.
Okay.
So one is to finish the project. The next one, another project was working with the DPW on replacing the culvert just upstream of it. So now they're linked and there's a really good, much better chance of getting both projects permitted. Not permitted, funded.
Funded.
And then the third one was to hire a consultant to help us revise the regulations. And so I reached out to Horsley Witten and they gave a quote for the amount of work it would take to revise the regulations so that they're a little more concise and then include, stormwater and climate change into it.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
One last question about the field. Do you know anyone who may be out there almost every day around 11:30 noon in an F-150 way at the backfield? Just like it's every day. And he seems like he's just walking around like that backfield. I don't know if he had anything to do with us or.
Nothing to do with us. See the guy with, well, everybody has a dog who goes there.
Yeah, I know. I only see him when he's driving to work at that time. Okay. No, I didn't know if he had anything to do with us. He's just so consistent. So.
Nope. I think he's just a regular who goes out there. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I did meet a few people with metal detectors one day.
Yeah, I've seen a few of those guys out there already.
You tell them if they find anything, we get half.
I did not. So, that's it for environmental report.
So last meeting, we actually spoke about amending the order of conditions for 226 Massbogger, having Jennifer approve it under a minor amendment. We just want to ratify that vote since it wasn't on our agenda for last time. It was sort of a last minute thing. So any questions?
None.
Seeing none, so make a motion to consider the change in septic system design, a minor amendment that Jennifer can approve. That the land use environmental planner, land use agent, environmental planner can approve. Who said maybe a second? Okay.
There it is.
Call fells, roll call vote. Call fells aye.
Carol, aye.
Spady, aye.
Okay, Caulfield, Spady, with the second, 3-0 to have Jennifer approve the email.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, so, anything else from anybody? Okay, Jennifer? Not bad.
Coming in at 2 hours. We're doing well still.
And, we're getting there. I didn't think we were going to make it there for a while, but we did. So, that's it. So, motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Excuse me, were you going to discuss whether or not you're gonna have a quorum, or are you gonna wait?
That's a good point. Thank you, Tish.
Okay, so
Yeah,
just a second, since the motion was second, I do want to rescind my motion. Okay. Okay, so we're back to on the record. So at our February 7th meeting, I'm not going to be here. I have spoken to Vice Chair, and he will be here. So, and we actually had a member added to the committee tonight by the select board. I assume it was. They were in the middle of interviews when I cut over to this meeting. So I assume that they chose one of the two candidates. There were two candidates for the position. So I don't know if Carol will make the meeting or not. I'm not 100% certain, but it looks to me like we will actually have a quorum. There may be something like, if 12 Goodspeed comes up again, you may not have a quorum for that particular item.
Yeah.
Isn't there a lot of continued hearings on that night too, though?
I don't think so.
No. Okay, I didn't even.
No, for February 7, we kind of booted everybody over.
Oh, right, put it the next over. Got it.
Yeah, I tried not to put 560 Foundry on February 7th.
That's good. That's good.
They were, but then they asked to be later.
So
there's one continuance for Hobart, and then we have 3 new projects.
So can anything continue? Can the new? They can.
Yeah, if we don't have a quorum, we just bump everybody further down.
But so like Hobart, the new member could vote on that project.
No. Well, you'd have to go through the whole file. It's just kind of a lot to ask a new member who hasn't done any wetland protection before to go through all these old files and figure out what they mean, and then be able to do the Mullins form and then vote on them.
Yeah, I would be inclined to. Yeah, I agrre.
It's not impossible. It's just a lot to ask, and then that person might be like, forget it, I'm not going anymore.
Yeah, and plus Hobart isn't as straightforward as, purports to be. It's pretty complicated, so they're up against an easement. I mean, there's all sorts of things going on there that just like are sort of pushed off to the side over there. So I think if we don't have a quorum for specific items, we'll have to push them off. If we don't have a quorum in general, we'll just have to do it. But I think you'll have a quorum at this point.
Okay.
It may just be you two and the new person, but I'm not sure. I know Carol is aware that we may have a quorum issue on the 7th. So
Mike and I are visibly nervous.
We had emailed. We had emailed at the last meeting, and she said don't really count on her to be there on the 7th. She can't commit to it, so maybe be there. But
I know, but I think you'll have the 3. But I don't know about the new member, whether they'll be available yet or what. They're going to have to get sworn in. They have to do their all their trainings and whatnot. So, but that can usually be done in a day or 2, and they do the swearing in. It takes 2 minutes. So. Okay, so that answer the question, Tish. We good on that?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Or he's going to be going back and watching that meeting after the fact, just laughing at us.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I am. If I could be in Mike's ear the whole night, I would, but I'm not able to. So
Mike's gonna be great.
I'll be.
Oh yeah. I'm not worried about Mike. Worried about me.
Yes. So here. So I'll talk to you again, Mike. But
Perfect.
everything's going to be perfect.
Not worried.
Motion to adjourn.
Carl second.
Oh, there you go.
Roll call, Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Beatty, aye.
Okay, Caulfield's, Carol with the second, 3-0 to adjourn. See you guys.
There you go.
See ya.
Bye.